Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. And with this video, we're discussing my thoughts on episode 11 of the anime series Shokugeki no Soma, Sen no Sara Toutsuki Ressha-hen, the second half of season 3 of Shokugeki no Soma, the Toutsuki train arc, respectively. And I don't know whether it was just my own personal viewing experience of this episode or not, but I kind of just found it, I don't know, unresounding, I guess. Borderlining meh overall. All of the excitement, all of the twists and turns that have happened thus far in this season, second half of season 3, have been relatively resounding, and I've been really engaged with it and found it compelling, been captivated by it, usually on the edge of my seat, and I just felt like aspects of this episode were going through the motions. Petering out that Ishiki would take the win against his respective opponent, whose name I still haven't learned, because I don't care. And I think it was interesting how they fitted in through the flashbacks and things like that, the back history that he actually has interpersonally with Nene, who is, Soma's opponent. I thought that was somewhat interesting. It was interesting how a lot of the ingredients he utilized for his eel dish called back on things that were the, experimental stages of Polar Star, smoking this and cheese that and whatever, But it did kind of feel like all of this stuff was put in there to sort of pad out Ishiki's taking the win. Like, we can't just have him win. We should make it a little more interesting. And, wouldn't it be interesting if actually Ishiki had a tie with Nene? They were friends in childhood. And he was so much more talented naturally and gifted than she was. And so she would have a level of jealousy. And she's carrying that jealousy into this current Shokugeki, match between Central and our rebelistic characters. And it just kind of felt like it was forced in there to make it a little more interesting, where it really wasn't. Just the idea of Ishiki taking the win. I mean, it's as I said, it's mostly resolved down to the fact that it is almost a given, to me in any case, even though I'm unfamiliar completely with the source material, I'm almost taking it for granted that Soma and our rebels are going to take the win in some way, shape, or form. It's not a certainty. I'm not going to sell the farm on that speculation, but that is my overriding speculation. And so it's just a means of getting to those ends. And they could have boiled down Ishiki's win to the first 5 minutes of the episode and then spent the entire rest of the episode on something else. But, of course, this is Shokugeki no Soma. It's about the Shokugeki in question, and so we're going to learn about the dishes and the ingredients, and we're going to see the opponent start off, debuting his dish, and all the judges we welcome into this episode. WGO World, what was it, Gourmet or Gourmand Organization, something like that, judges, and this is something that calls back to the whole idea of getting so many stars for your restaurant or whatever your culinary skills, and the wins and losses of that, how it can create a long-standing benevolent career for an aspiring chef, or it can all-out ruin a restaurant. And while the stakes of that were pretty tantamount, just the fact that, they just ushered these three characters in all of a sudden. We've never seen them before, at least to my memory. It wasn't somebody we have seen before, and it was like, oh, crap, there's that person again, So, I mean, so much of it was just sort of going through the motions of what Shokugeki no Soma does when it comes to the deliberation section, that segment of the Shokugeki in question. Even though everything, all the stakes that are riding high between the rebels and Central and Azami and all that stuff, I didn't get as resounding a feeling of that in this episode. It was just a foregone conclusion. Ishiki was going to take the win. I didn't even know they were going to focus on him to start with, but I kind of, saw that's where it was going in the early few minutes of the episode. And I thought it was interesting that he's like the second match of the three in this round, but they focused on him first. And presumably we're going to focus more on Soma in the next episode. And I'm wondering how they're going to do that, because I get the idea via the message that's, post the end credits, it almost seems to give me the impression that 12 episodes is how this is going to round out, that it's going to be the finale next week. It feels like there's not enough time left with one episode to cover everything I think they ought to cover. You know, Joichiro coming back in is something that I want to see. His going up against Azami personally, it's going to be really shoehorned in if they're going to just focus all of that stuff on one final episode for the season. You know, they could probably pad it out to 2 and make it satisfying. But of course, it all remains to be seen how exactly this is all going to come to a close, if in fact it is going to close at 12 episodes. That is the presumption. That's what I figured going into it to begin with, because this is the second half of the 3rd season. And I don't know where they're going to leave it exactly without having that familiarity with the source material. And I don't know if this assures us that we're going to get a season 4 or what, along those lines. I could watch Shokugeki no Soma all day long, every season, if they wanted to pump out more episodes. But it is going to have to be a little more intriguing. Like, one of my speculations in a previous episode discussion video was talking about the idea that, and I've grown fond of this speculation, and I have no idea if this is the direction it'll go, but let's say our Rebel crew takes the win in this whole, Rebels versus Central versus Azami framework. And then the next stage, the next arc of whatever the story would be involving our Rebels being now the new Elite 10, and then having to contend with direct, sort of antagonistic going back and forth with the remnants of Central. Like, Central didn't die out, like they still exist. But then you have 2 opposing factions with an actual brand name on top of them. The Elite 10 versus Central. It would be the Rebel Elite 10 versus Central. And that could make it a little more interesting. It would be a little more interesting if, Central took a loss and then Arina's grandfather came in and retook control over, Toutsuki Academy. But they couldn't, because of some legalese or something like that, they couldn't all out and out oust Azami and Central, so they would be the thorn in the sides of our characters, continuing on. But I have no idea. I have no idea how it's going to go. I'm still highly anticipating finding that out, getting to the finale, whichever episode that will be, 12, 13, however long it's going to run for this, second half of season 3. I just feel like if it's one more episode, there's so much that I want to see. There's so much that needs to happen. I'm not confident at the moment that they can put that all into one singular episode, but it remains to be seen. I just know that this episode, it was just kind of, all right, well, this is everything I expected. Who cares who they are? Okay, now let's get to the finale already. That kind of thing. So with that in mind, bring on the next one, and that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.